So thank you, Alice and Ben, for joining us today and for taking time out of your really busy day to talk to us about what it's like to be an i2i trainee. So before we start, I just wondered if you could just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you, what subject you teach and where you're placed. Ben.
Hi, so I'm Ben. I'm a music trainee currently based at Weedon.
Okay, great. And Alice?
And I'm an MFL trainee based at St Bede's in Redhill. I do German and French.
Amazing. So those are two of our partner schools, quite opposite sides of the county. So we've got quite a few partner schools across a few counties. So that's brilliant. I've got a series of questions here where I just want to find out from you a little bit about what the programme means to you and the different parts of the programme, and a little bit about why you applied for teacher training. So if I start with that, what made you want to become teachers in the first place? Alice, if I can start with you.
Okay, so there are so many factors, but since I graduated from university, which was a while ago now, I just sort of worked a few fairly soulless online marketing jobs. Being a desk monkey and working with people who just wanted to make money. And I've always been such a people person, and more in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years, I felt like I wanted to do something with people and helping people. And I thought, well, I haven't really used either of my degrees, which were languages and translation. And I find a series of events last year, or year before, just meant that I had some time to think about what I really, really wanted from life. And also because I'd hit my 30s and had a bit more life experience, I felt like I was kind of ready to take that leap. And I thought, hang on, you know what, maybe teaching is for me. So that was when I made my decision, and I have not looked back. Definitely, every day I feel like I've made the best decision of my life. Genuinely.
That's so lovely to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alice. And then Ben, your stories, I wouldn't say it was similar, but you did a previous job before you came into teaching. Just talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I was a professional musician in the British Army for 6.5 years, where I was a member of the band of the Household Cavalry. Great career, had a great time, but it was time for a change. Okay. Life changes. So my wife is a teacher, so it was quite a natural. I knew the job quite already. And I also did some private teaching, private instrumental teaching for the last few years of my career, and I've always loved working with people. And it's that light bulb moment. It's when you teach someone and they go, I've got it. Or it's when they go away from a lesson and they practice something you've taught or worked on something. They come back the next lesson and it's there.
Wow.
So yeah, that for me is great. And similar to Alice, I mean, taking a career change is a big decision in life, massive. But I've not looked back at all. And it's me. The teaching for me, I'm so happy doing it, which is great.
That's great. That's brilliant. That's so nice to hear from people that are at the start of their career. That's so lovely. And just in terms of why you chose to train with us, with i2i, Alice, what made you want to come and train with us?
I think for me, the clinching factor was just the warmth that I felt on my interview day. I felt some other providers I interviewed with and went to see were just didn't have that kind of community feel. It wasn't so that sort of human factor. It was a bit more sort of you and me, and whereas I felt like I just felt very welcomed. Yeah,
brilliant. That's lovely. And what was it for you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, much the same. I met you at a careers fair where there was quite a few providers, and just create connection straight away. And one of the big things for me and the SCITT was the fact that I'm going to be in school from day one. I did my degree some time ago, and for me, I wasn't quite wanting to go back into the university frame, and I really like the idea of practical on-the-job training, which has been one of the great benefits of i2i.
And that's a real feature of a SCITT, the fact that actually you are basically part of a department from the 1st of September, and you do the training alongside the school-based training, so it kind of goes hand in hand together.
And actually something I remembered when I met Chrissy, the recruitment lead, and somebody who actually now works at St Bede's at the coffee morning, and just everything that she said and a couple of other trainees just really
Sold it to you.
Yeah, sealed the deal.
Oh, amazing! Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about the different parts of the programme. Obviously there's the school-based training, which is what you do every day in school within your subject areas. But then there's also the centre-based training. So it's the professional studies aspect and then the subject studies aspect. So Alice, if I start with you and the professional studies training, so when does that happen and what does that look like?
Okay, so for the first half term, so from September till the middle of October or end of October, we have training days on Mondays and Fridays, which cover pedagogical theory. And then after half term, we just have them once a week, so then we're in school 4 days a week. So we cover pedagogical theory, difficult one to say. Things like behaviour, strategies for special needs in education, and these are nicely sort of organised in such a way that you know what's being spoken about from day one without having to have any prior knowledge, and then you start to be drip fed information that is relevant to you in school at that time. It's really quite seamlessly done. It's quite clever. So and then it becomes more and more you learn about the theory and then you see how you can practically apply it in school. So professional studies gives you that sort of stepping stone towards what you can do in school.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that idea that you get the theory and then you practice it when you're in school. So Ben, for you, if you just think about some of the training you have had on a Monday and a Friday, can you think of a couple of examples that have really impacted your teaching and you've really been able to implement into your school-based training? Yeah,
most definitely. I think for me, behaviour for learning strategies have been really great. So you learn about it in professional studies. So something as simple as a narrated countdown. So rather than just in a class going 3, 2, 1, and you expect the kids to be quiet, it's not that simple. I mean, if you learn to narrate the countdown, so it'd be 3, put the pens down, 2, eyes this way, and 1, we're ready to learn, or something like that. So we've learnt about that in the professional studies, and then you can take that and then apply that to your lessons. So it's always great, you're always learning about skills and then applying them in your own practice.
Brilliant. And for you, Alice, have you got an example of something that really impacted your teaching when you went back into school?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot about how you learn, how students learn. And I remember saying to you, Maria, that I actually wasn't even particularly thinking about it, but I finally realised quite a long way into my life how I learn because of what we've been speaking about in professional studies. And then also, I think the session as well as cognitive load theory was really, really good. You know, how not to overload your students, bombarding them with information because they just won't be able to handle it. And also about what you put on your displays and your PowerPoints in the classroom, whether that's going to be enough or is it going to be too distracting, bright colours everywhere. So that was a really good thing to practically apply in the classroom.
And you learnt that quite early on because actually knowing that,
October, maybe?
Because knowing that sort of information is going to have a massive impact on the way that you plan your lessons and you deliver material in class, which is really, really important. And then Ben, just over to you in terms of the stuff that you get taught, the training material. How do you know that it's that it's relevant and current and it will actually work in the classroom?
Yeah, so everything we learn about is all based on current research, and so each different session we look where the research has come from, we look how they've done the research and what their results are, and then so we're using current research all the time and then we can apply that, which is really useful.
And then one last question about the professional studies. So obviously you come together as a whole cohort to do those, and we've got 2 hubs, and we've got the Weydon hub and the Reigate hub, and depending on what hub you're in, that's where you come together. Why is that important for you to be able to see other people on those Mondays and Fridays?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're all in similar situations, and if we didn't come together then we wouldn't be able to share ideas and just check in with each other and see how we're getting on. And it's not just the massive groups as well. We go into little groups and we have group discussions, and these get changed around as well. It's not just people from your subject or people from your school. In fact, it rarely is. You know, you kind of get popped in random groups every time, which is really, really good to get a well-rounded discussion going on. But yeah, it's great to have that that community feel as well and just check in with each other.
Brilliant, that's great. And then another aspect of the centre-based training is the subject studies. Now, obviously, you're both doing subject training all the time because you're in a department and you're teaching your subject. But at certain points in the year, you get taken out of your department and to do subject-specific training. So, Ben, just talk to me about how they're organised.
Yeah, okay, so you have 6 sessions a year. So you solely meet up with your other subject trainees. It's a great day because you really get to bounce ideas off each other, and you have a professional subjects mentor who's, well, in my case, a head of music, but each mentor is a specialist in their field. And we get together and we discuss how we're going to apply what we've learned in the professional training to our subject, which is very different from subject to subject. I'm a practical teacher, so one thing that might apply to a maths lesson, we need to then work out how that would then look in a music lesson. Yeah. But they're great days because you often teach a lesson one day and go, oh, this worked for me in my music lesson, and then say, oh, well, this worked for me. Oh, you could do this, you could do that, and straight away the conversation started. Yeah. So I've learned a lot from the subject days.
Brilliant. And then Alice, for you then, is there something that you've done recently in subject studies that's really impacted your teaching?
Yes, I think for me, I got to a point where I was sort of struggling a bit for ideas of more inventive ideas for the classroom. And in the last couple of sessions, we've discussed all kinds of games that you can play in MFL lessons. So it didn't just apply to French or Spanish or German. It was things that all of us could use in our lessons. And so we spent quite a good few hours talking through how those all worked, and in what different situations you could use them. And then we also talked about special needs in languages, which was really, really useful. We talked about our languages for everybody, or will certain types of child find them more difficult to learn. But yeah, definitely having those ideas that we could practically use in the classroom was really, really helpful, because now I feel like I've used a couple of them and things are a bit more exciting. I've got this renewed energy, even though I'm really tired because it's nearly end of term. But yeah, so they're really useful. And then just to have a good discussion, like Ben said, with your peers and exchange ideas and say, well, this worked for me, this didn't work for me, because everybody will have an idea that you don't have, and you'll have an idea that they don't have. So it's just a sort of smaller scale sharing.
And I suppose it's nice to meet up with peers on the programme that are also doing your subject, because it's lovely being in your department and being surrounded by experts all the time, but actually there's nothing better than actually getting together with other trainees, teaching your subject and saying, okay, I've done this, what do you think, X, Y and Z. So that's really powerful.
It's a great support bubble as well. I mean, you never know, you might end up working with these people in the future.
Exactly.
And I've made some great friends already from just the music trainees. And it's great.
Absolutely.
It's a great conversation going on there. So.
Brilliant. Okay, so then a big part of the training is the school-based training. So, Ben, if I start with you, how long are you in school? How many days a week? What does that kind of look like? How is that structured?
So at the start, you're in school from day one. Yeah. Which is great because you get to meet all the new staff, and then you get to see all the other staff come back in, and you're sort of part of the team straight away, which is really good. And then for the first half term, so you have professional studies on a Monday and Friday, and then you're in school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then after October that goes down to 4 days. So you're in school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And for the first half term, you do a lot of shadowing your mentor, and then you just gradually start doing little bits of teaching. You don't go straight in on the first week, and it's not straight in at all. So now where I'm at, I've built up, and now I'm teaching full lessons. Yeah. So it's a drip approach, which is great because it's good for your confidence, because there's a lot to do. Yeah,
and just to reassure people, if you're on those 3 days, you have a really small timetable, and then the timetable grows over the year. So I think that's what a lot of people are worried about, that you're in school day one and you're teaching full timetable. No, it doesn't really work like that. No. So, and who, Alice, if I ask you, who supports you when you're in school? So who are the main people that support you when you're in school?
So you've got your mentor in department, who you have a meeting with every week, but you see them a lot more frequently, that you're in most of their lessons to begin with, observing, and then you're around each other all the time. So it's not just that mentor meeting, you get support constantly, basically. and then we have a professional mentor. In my case, it's one of the assistant heads, and he holds meetings with us 2 or 3 times a term, various things. So we had a meeting about SEN, we've got a meeting about jobs coming up, and he's always there. His door's always open, and he does the odd observation as well to see how we're getting on. So yeah, both of those people are really your main support. But then you've got all the other teachers in your department. I mean, I've got such a lovely department that I'll go and speak to all of them. We all say good morning and good evening to each other when we leave. And so yeah, there's a lot of support.
Brilliant, brilliant. And is it similar for you, Ben? Have you got the same sort of support structure in your school?
Yeah, so I've got my mentor, professional mentor, and I'm really lucky. The department's quite small as a music department, but it's really quite a close department, so I can go and ask questions and get any support from anybody, which is awesome.
Okay. And Ben, can I just ask you about, so obviously, you talked about how you start with a few lessons and a little bit of the lesson, and then you build up. But another really important feature of the training is being a tutor and getting involved in tutor time. Just talk to us about what that looks like.
This is amazing. It's one of the things that I really enjoy a lot. Not that I would say I wasn't looking forward to it, but you just don't. You know your subject, but it's the welfare side of the form. So every morning, obviously, the kids come to the registration. You get to check in with them. How you doing? How was your day yesterday? And it's great. I've got a thing in my form where if it's someone's birthday, they wear the birthday hat. So they're all looking forward to their birthdays. They know they're going to come to a form and they wear the birthday hat for the whole session. So it's just really nice. You really get to know the kids, and the biggest reward of that, the relationships you make in form. When you then teach them in lessons, you've really got that good relationship, and it's a great feeling.
That's brilliant. And then Alice, can I just come back to you about the actual teaching? So talk to me about how lesson planning works and actually getting to grips with that. So how did that happen? I mean, obviously you started with little bits of lessons and then you've eventually you're now teaching full lessons. So how did you manage that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I always thought, the lesson planning, the thing that everybody talks about. So you start off, like you were saying, with the lesson really small. So you'll start off with your mentor. You'll organise planning sessions every week to start with, and you do just that episode. So it might be the start of a lesson, or the plenary at the end of the lesson, or one activity, and your mentor will show you how they set it up. And then, so you'll plan one where your mentor will lead it, or cut a few where your mentor will lead it, and then you plan some where you lead it, but your mentor's there for help. And then as you build up, then I think you for quite a while, maybe first half term or a bit longer, then you do it together. So after a few weeks, you lead the session, but your mentor's always there and saying, well, could you do this quicker, or what do you think about the order of what you're doing? And then you can say, I want to break away now to get out there and do it for myself. And then you get to a point where you will send your plan off to your mentor and they'll check it, or you can always just come and can ask you a question. So it's very, very scaffolded, very nicely done. So you're never there planning a thing that you have no context for. So, and you look at the department's medium-term plan as well, and you see, right, where are we? We're in the 3rd week of October, so that means I need to be teaching this lesson, but let me check in case they're a bit behind or a bit ahead. And so lots of there's documentation that tells you where you need to be. So you're not just plonked in there and told to just do something. You've always got information and you've always got support. So.
And how do you know if you're doing a good job? So once you've taught a lesson, what happens after that?
So every lesson your mentor will write some feedback, and you have a conversation.
Right.
It's so fluid, and then once a week you have a mentor meeting where you talk about the week. But I think same for Alice and me and my mentor will always discussing after every lesson what could we change, And so yeah, it's really fluid and it's continuous.
Yeah, it's that continuous evaluation of your teaching
Yeah,
and making it better, and you know that it's quite seamless.
Yeah, and even now we've been doing it for a few months. I still have the odd lesson where I just think I have no idea what to do, so I just go to my mentor and we talk about it, and then it's all fine.
Okay, and can I just ask you, before you started teaching or teacher training, did either of you have any particular fears or worries or anxieties?
Obviously, teacher training, you always hear about planning, as you said, and the workload, which is one of the big things. There's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Teaching a class of 30 students is not as simple as you might think it is. But the best things about it is the reward you get from it. And personally, for me, I've been able to come up with good systems, manage my workload with the help from all the professional studies. All of the deadlines and the work are well planned throughout the year. So if you keep on top of it, for me, my biggest fear has been okay, because I managed to keep a steady route.
Yeah. And for you, Alice?
Yeah, I think I'd say more or less the same as Ben. And time management has massively improved since starting the programme. But I guess the other thing would be, having had a sedentary job where I sit in front of a computer, and I'm a very, very sociable person and I'm confident, but thinking that first time when you get up in front of, even if it's a bunch of little year 8s, thinking, how's it going to go? Am I going to completely clam up? But it's absolutely fine. So that was an initial worry, I guess. Faded away after about the second session. So.
And I think you feel you're really nervous, but to them it's they don't.
They're just as nervous as well because they don't know you.
Yeah, exactly. And also, even if something goes wrong, they're so good at forgetting about it and coming back and starting again, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think my first lesson I drew on with a whiteboard pen on the pull down.
Oh no!
and then but it came off, so it was fine.
I
just carried on.
That's okay.
Pulled the screen up and carried on.
One other aspect of the programme that I forgot to mention was the PGCE. So obviously we offer a QTS and PGCE course. So just Ben, talk to me about what the PGCE entails. Why are you doing it?
Okay, so the QTS, what we do with i2i is much of the practical training. The PGC is a lot more the theoretical training. So you do a lot of research on why do we do certain things in lessons, and then you read into that, and then I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to apply that to my work and evaluate how that went. So that's the master's side of the course, which for me, I probably should have mentioned in not the fears, but it was one thing, because I've been at university 6 or 7 years before. It's been a while since I've done that sort of work, but I've really enjoyed it. And it's a different style of work as well. It's not quite writing an essay, it's very much more evaluative and it's research based. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that side of it.
Okay, and how are you finding the PGCE?
Yeah, I think I'd say more or less the same. It's actually quite a refreshing, I mean, I'm loving the school side of it, but it's just a completely different side where you get into the academic literature, the nitty-gritty, and think, what are these theorists saying? And you get to really analyse the data or the findings. So I really like it, and when you then teach a series of lessons, so you apply, like you said, you apply the theory to your lessons and you evaluate then how it worked out. And we've taught those lessons now, so kind of looking forward to casting my mind back and getting into it. So yeah, it's different. And at the end of it, you have a whole assignment that you then submit in March, I think. So yeah, it's just a different side of things, but gets you thinking about where all the ideas that come into teaching actually came from.
Yeah, it's that academic backbone to the programme, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and so I would say my kind of final questions to you are about successes and challenges. Okay, so you've come to the end of the first term in your teacher training. You've done brilliantly to get here. You're both smiling, which is amazing. So what would you say, Ben, has been your biggest success this term?
So there's the teaching, first of all. It is teaching pupils who, for me, might not go, or might say to me, "Sir, I'm not musical. I can't do that." And then it's working with them and getting them somewhere. which is great in the classroom. But for me, my biggest success is working with extracurricular activities, which is great because you really get to work with the kids who want to do music maybe at GCSE and later in their life. So the buzz you get from that individual work and that teamwork is great. So that's my success.
Amazing. Alice, for you?
Yeah, I think I had just actually thinking, oh wow, I've made it this far. Because I was worried about it just being too much for me, but it's absolutely fine. But I think I had this one day where I had an observation with Michelle from the SCITT and the professional mentor, because my mentor had to go off for an emergency, and it was period 5, and I thought he was coming back, but then he didn't get back, and I'd planned this lesson and I was really wanting it to go really well because all these people watching me, and then I couldn't get onto the computer because the supply teacher had been in the room before me, and I had to go and print out my plan in case I couldn't get into the computer, and then during the lesson about 4 different people came in to ask 4 different things, and but I just channeled my inner swan, and it was all okay, and it was the best lesson I taught so far. So I think that was a massive success, and that particular class they just seem to get it all the time, more or less, and that's really, really pleasing, because you have other classes where you think, do they even know what I'm talking about? But that class, that's a massive success story for me, because they just are really flourishing.
Brilliant. So, and to think how far you've come, so to think actually, in September you didn't know how to teach, and then you've managed to get to now, and you've managed to kind of deal with all those disruptions to a lesson and channel your inner swan, like you said, and actually get the teaching done, which is
now
amazing.
If somebody comes into a lesson, however many people come into a lesson, distract
Come on in.
Come on in. You just get used to it. It's just normal. And actually, that was a really good thing, because things like that happen in everyday teaching. You can't always just have a perfect flow. So.
Oh, well, I'm really proud of the way that you've both developed and grown as teachers, and to hear that a term in is amazing. So really, really well done. And just to finish off then, if someone was thinking about getting into teaching, and particularly thinking about should I apply to i2i, what would you say to them?
It's the community. It's such a really nice, close-knit community. You get to work with other trainees a lot and quite closely. And for me, it was about being in the job from day one.
Okay.
It's really, really good.
Brilliant. And Alice?
Stole my answer. But I'd say community. And the team are lovely. They send you a birthday card. So the community, and just also we have support in place. We do have a sort of in-SCITT counsellor, if you like. So if you're ever struggling with anything, and not that I've used her actually, but if you are, then you know that you've got other people that you can call. You've got that support network, and just the warmth that I felt from day one was really important. And being in school.
I just don't want to fix it, and it's the people who run it as well. The people who run it are teachers, and that sounds a bit weird to say, but you're still teaching, still teaching at Wade, and Liz obviously was a head teacher,
and our subject studies.
So the people who are training us are still teaching, which is great, because they might come in from, my lesson was this the other day because of this, and I actually thought about that. So it never stops. Everyone is still on this journey and teaching, so it's great.
And I think that's really important, actually, to understand that, to know that the people leading you and training you are experiencing that, it themselves on a day-to-day basis. So
and one more thing I think is also, you think, there's so much to do as a teacher, but the very fact that you, for example, run this and you teach as well, just goes to show you that if you come in as a trainee thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to be so hard, actually by the end of the year it will just be normal, and you'll still have time to do things and have a life.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us, and thank you so much for your positivity and your enthusiasm.
No, it's fine.
That's good.